Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Urban Updates. Not a cooking show, but I'm still Alberto Vasallo. Now, on the show today, get your popcorn ready because we will discuss, among many things, how you can look younger, and we'll share some anti-aging secrets with the only woman of color to have founded a successful media spa franchise in New England. That's in a little while. We'll also interview the head of a civil rights organization who last week asked, why are 90% of all new firefighters in Boston white? That's later on the show. But first up, like I said, my popcorn's ready because let's face it, by February, probably most of you have already done away with the New Year's weight loss resolution. You've probably already thrown in the towel. But our first guest has encouraging news because Felicia Stoller, a registered nutritionist and exercise psychologist, explains in her new book that the real reason 41% of dieters gain back more weight than they'd lost in 5 years is due to a power play by the brain. So weight loss struggles actually have less to do with lack of willpower and more about brain power. Now, in her book, which we just showed, Living Skinny in Fat Genes, Stoller shares her mind over matter tips to help your brain focus in the right direction. Joining us this morning is the author that seems to be interested, or everyone seems to be interested in this topic. I know some of our folks here are. Welcome to Urban Update.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for filling up my table with a lot of props.
I know. It's
We've
the
got
fun part of what I
everything
do.
going on here.
Right? I know. Lots of fun things to talk about because at the end of the day, we have to eat to live. So the question is, what are we going to be eating? What is good for us? Maybe what isn't so great for us? And how can we find healthier versions of foods that maybe we like to eat?
Yeah. So let's go right with the title of your book. Okay. Living Skinny in Fat Genes, but not the jeans that people wear, the genes in your DNA, right?
Right. So I tell a really cute story in the book about a cartoon I saw early on in my career because, when you go to conferences, everybody likes to show PowerPoints with cartoons. And it's a guy sitting across from the doctor and he says, "Doc, fat genes run in my family." And the doctor says, "No, nobody in your family runs." I mean, so really, that's sort of the premise of it. And I think about all the years and all the counseling I've done with people, and people always like to blame their DNA, but the truth is obesity and overweight for that matter were not significant health problems a generation ago. Maybe your parents, my parents, their parents, our grandparents. It wasn't the problem that it is now, which means it's the environment.
That's what I was going to say. So it's the environment and stuff of the stuff.
Yeah, so it's clearly the environment.
All right. Now you also talk about the influence the brain has rather than willpower. It's about brain power.
I mean, it is about brain power, but if you think about willpower, I mean, our brain controls everything. I mean, this stuff didn't just show up. I made a choice to go out and buy it, right? So we make active choices all the time in terms of what we choose to put in our mouths and whether or not we choose to do any physical activity.
So I want to go over mind over matter. So you have 4 tips, right?
Yes.
I see the first one's up, cater to cravings.
Cater
What's
to
that?
cravings.
I like
well,
that.
You've got the chocolate in front of you, so we could start with that,
we'll
right?
show the chocolate in just a little bit, but you do cater
so
to...
cater to your cravings is one. Don't demonize food groups. We're going to talk about that in more detail with regards to carbs.
Okay.
Slow and steady wins the race. That's about losing weight slowly if you're on a weight loss plan, because if you do it too quickly, the likelihood of you gaining it back and then some increases. And swap a bad habit is really about taking some behavior that you're doing and find a healthier version of what you can do to replace, that bad habit. Maybe that bad habit is going to food.
Okay. So let's get into this, what we're looking at the table here, because we've got a bevy of products, including some popcorn. I'll show a little bit of the chocolate. I know that there you go. I got the camera right there.
That's right.
So what does this all mean?
So speaking of the chocolate, you see that's a large chocolate bar.
Yes.
What's the likelihood that you're going to follow what the portion is and just break off a little piece and eat that?
Well, once you get started, you can't stop.
That's right. Well, that's why I recommend getting something like the package right next to it.
Okay, so this.
Yeah, I like individually portioned foods. I mean, I know some people thought those 100-calorie snack packs were a bad thing. I like things that are pre-portioned.
So this is pre-portioned?
Yeah, same thing with the nuts I have over here too, right? Because, otherwise you could take that whole container of nuts, and once they're open, you might just eat the whole thing versus eating.
You tend to eat the whole thing, in one sitting.
Right.
And then this, you're almost obligated to watch yourself, right?
Same thing with the popcorn that you're looking at. You go to the movies, you got the big.
I actually thought, because the show was so entertaining, this was for the popcorn. But
Right. So, again, very challenging when you have different types of portions.
So get the small.
Get the small.
Versus the
because if that's
supersize.
You'll eat that during the course of the 2-hour movie for sure if it's in front of you.
I will.
So that's really important there. And then we want to also have things like beverages, right? So water is good. And what if you want to screw off the bottom.
No, you know what? You do this,
I'll
because
do
I'm
this,
going to screw
right.
this up. Watch this, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
so instead of having like sweetened beverages like that, you want to drink more water. People complain that they don't like the taste of water. So what I recommend is something like this, where you can squeeze some citrus right in here, squeeze it in, right? So our bodies are 70% water. We need to have more water. Sometimes we perceive that we're hungry when we're really thirsty and dehydrated. So the thirst cue is not really reliable for most people. So that's something to think
Talk
about.
to me a little about carbs, because I have some pasta here.
Right.
And some people have had success eliminating carbs, but then it seems like they come back and gain the weight again, right?
Right. So, so it's really cool that you're talking about carbs, because that's what people demonize food groups. So one of the things that they tend to demonize are carbs. They don't want to have carbs. The truth is our body needs carbs. Our brain relies exclusively on carbohydrates for fuel. As a sports dietitian, I can tell you that athletes need carbohydrates to fuel their muscle and their activities. We burn the most fat for fuel at rest. But guess what? I got a really cool little thing for your toolbox here. Right, so you see this, that is phase 2, which is which is a branded ingredient that has a lot of research behind it. And what it does is it's a carb blocker. It inhibits the absorption of carbohydrates when taken before a meal where there's carbs there. And you can get it at GNC, you can get it at Vitamin Shop, and this other brand, Natural, is just another example. And it shows that people that use this can block up to 65% of the carbohydrates in the meal that they're consuming. Wow. So that's going to be part of the whole slow and steady wins the race. So when you think about weight loss, think about it in terms of a half a pound to no more than 2 pounds of weight loss per week being considered safe.
All right, what about the folks who are watching and said, yeah, but my genes, coming back to your book, I have this in my family. How could I override this genetic destiny, they might call?
So think about that weight loss, that slow and steady weight loss, first of all, being really important, so that when you get to a plateau is an opportunity for your body to reset. So when I counsel patients, I always say to them, what's your highest adult body weight, your lowest adult body weight, and where do you tend to stay without much effort? Because where you tend to stay is that set point theory. So we want to go past that set point theory. And I'll tell you the trick beyond food, the most important thing you can do is exercise. And it's not enough to just do cardiorespiratory or cardio exercise. When people think about rhythmic exercise, it's doing strength training. So increasing the muscle mass that you have on your body is the best way to increase your metabolism.
How about some bad food habits? People have bad food habits. What are some of those, and how could you avoid those?
Well, some bad food habits that people have is they think that they need to eat lots and lots and lots of protein. So that is a problem, right? So we hear that protein's important, but we should be eating less animal source protein, more plant-based protein. I was at a restaurant recently where it said on the menu, we recommend a pound of fish per person. I'm like, yeah, no, that's a little bit too much. And the reason is that we don't create muscle by eating protein, right? So anything in excess of need gets stored as fat. Another food I didn't bring here that a lot of people like to eat, and sorry folks, granola is another one of those foods that everyone thinks it's got this health halo because it seems like it's a healthier food, but the truth is it is laden in so many calories that to me it's just not even worth having. I don't get excited when I see granola anywhere.
Well, as long as I can have popcorn.
I know, popcorn's a whole grain. Popcorn's a whole grain too.
Want a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
and so the other thing too with whole grains is that you have to really look at a food label when you're looking at a food item, because you could look at things like loaves of bread and crackers, and it might say whole grain, but you have to look at the label and see how many grams of fiber are on there.
Okay, well, thank you for coming by. I know you got to get back to Jersey. I'm going to keep this. This is my present to
That's my
Soko.
favorite.
Soko Thompson, right here. This is her. She's a freak for chocolate, which is different than something else. But anyways, when we come back, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we'll actually add to this health topic one of the topics that many of our camera operators here are always talking about, anti-aging and what they can do to look younger. All the details right here on Urban Update.